Just a disclaimer before we begin, I'm not trained in psychology. This is a fan's analysis of fictional characters. Today I'm going to explore the character arcs and emotional development of the Digi-Destined. For those who don't know, the Digi-Destined is a term to refer to the main characters of the anime Digimon, specifically for today's discussion, the 1999 series release. Before we begin, each of these characters have a specific personality trait represented by an emblem known as a crest that helps define what they hold valuable and has partially defined their characters. Tai is the de facto leader of the group, and his crest is the crest of courage. In the beginning of the series, his courage isn't always expressed in the healthiest ways. Sometimes he throws himself into shouldering the burden of a decision when it isn't necessary. The primary example of this is when he steals food from his friends, so Agumon will have the power to protect them, as he and his partner are the only ones at the time with the ability to grow stronger with the power given to them by their crest. Tai continuously verbally berates Agumon and recklessly puts himself in danger to manipulate Agumon into digivolving further. It worked, but was twisted and distorted, as he was not being courageous. He was recklessly attacking out of hubris and desperation, as the team still did have a chance to escape or to fight as a team without the need of a single powerhouse. This tendency to shoulder burdens of danger is revealed to be caused because of an event that happened when he was young. In second grade, his little sister Kari had to stay home from school due to being sick. After he came home and saw that she seemed a little better thanks to a day of rest, he insisted on taking her to the park to have a chance to practice soccer. Soon into the practice, she collapses and has to be rushed to the hospital. A pneumonia exacerbated by her time in the fall air nearly cost Kari her life. His parents expressed it was his fault she nearly died, and even when Kari came home, she was saddened because she thought Tai would never want to play with her again. This instilled in him the need to be a leader, a need to defend his friends and family, a need to be the first one to put himself on the front lines, even if someone else was better suited to it, or if the option of escape was still available. He never wanted to lose another member of his friends or family, so he would be the first to offer himself instead. Through the course of his time as a Digi-Destined member, he comes to learn that true courage is acting in spite of fear and danger, not because of it. Kari is the younger sister of Tai. While outwardly a caring and selfless character, she tends to not express herself, repressing her needs so that others around her don't worry, to a degree that she does not express physical maladies and briefly succumbs to isolation and depression in later years. Kari's crest is the crest of light. She wants to be a positive and cheerful impact on everybody around her, to the point that she represses and hides the dark thoughts and feelings she experiences. She doesn't accept help as she believes that it is her role to be the helpful person in the group, and feels she failed her friends if she expresses herself in that way. Thankfully, when she was at her lowest point, her friends found her and helped her work through her isolation and loneliness, strengthening the bond of friendships they already had. Matt and his younger brother TK come from a divided home. Their parents have divorced, and at least depicted in the show, don't interact with each other often. Matt lives with his father, and his younger brother lives with his mother. Because of this, Matt and TK have to actively maintain their brotherly relationship. Matt's crest is the crest of friendship, but he spends most of his time dedicated to watching over his brother. As the adventure continues, Matt realizes that TK is growing up, becoming more independent, and that the world they find themselves in doesn't always allow them to stay close to his brother. He also believes he has missed out on the friendships he could have built over the time in the digital world, not feeling he belongs in the group as much as everyone else does. Leaving the group to go find himself and who he wants to be, he ends up isolating himself, barely holding on to his friendship with his partner Digimon, once again falling to feelings of failure, isolation, and loneliness, puts Matt into a tailspin until his friends are able to reach out to help him again and express that they've always considered him a part of the group, no matter how far away they were. TK has the unenviable situation of being the last remaining fighter in two of the big three fights within the first season of Digimon, against Devimon and Piedmon. In his first fight, he is targeted as the only child that could seriously fight against an overwhelming evil set to take over and destroy the world. Constantly seeing his friends buying time and getting hurt to give him time to run away or to have his partner digivolve, a feat that they have yet been able to accomplish. At the very end, with his partner crying over their failure, they are finally able to evolve and defeat Devimon, but at the perceived cost of his friend's life, witnessing his closest friend and partner sacrificing themselves to allow their friends to live. The second time features Piedmon slowly turning all of his friends into statues, one by one, as he hunts them for sport. As he and Kari are the last remaining, and his partner Digimon the only one left to fight an unbeatable enemy, he once again falls into despair, only coming back knowing that his brother would want him to continue to fight until the very end, for whatever chance they have left. This activates TK's crest of hope and allows his partner to grow stronger and win. Because of his crest of hope, TK, a 7-year-old child, is repeatedly forced into the situation where everyone needs him and is forced to watch them sacrifice themselves time and time again to give him a chance. Sora, throughout the course of Digimon, meditates on her strained relationship with her mother, feeling stifled and limited, forced to give up her love of soccer after receiving an injury in a game to work in her mother's flower shop. Sora repeatedly expresses her inability to express herself and grow because her mother doesn't care about or support her interests. Now finding herself in a similar guardian and loving role, a battle against a strong opponent begins. She desperately refuses to let her partner, Biyomon, fight against said opponent, begging her to run away instead, as she doesn't want Biyomon to get hurt. Realizing her mother felt the same way, not wanting her child to take on a challenge that has hurt her before, she realizes why Biyomon needs to fight, granting her the power to evolve further. Sora comes to understand that while loving someone and wishing them not to get hurt, the want to protect them from harm, if taken too far, limits and prevents them from growing into their full potential. Knowledge is a great and powerful thing. It has allowed humans to travel to the moon, understand the universe, connected us to one another across the world. But knowledge has a psychological impact that varies person to person. The weight of something that, once known, can't be forgotten, and it can redefine you. Izzy learned after waking up and overhearing his parents that he was adopted. He hears them discussing how he is a smart kid and is going to figure out eventually. But he's so busy, maybe they should just wait. And they wait for years. Izzy is forced to take on this knowledge before he was ready, and he doesn't have anyone to communicate this with. His view of his relationship with his parents has changed in ways he doesn't know how to process. Gradually, he begins to shut himself away from the world, retreating to a place he still knows, his computer. Upon coming back to the real world, while in the middle of an attack, Izzy knows he can protect him and his parents, putting up a barrier around their home, isolating them away from the outside world. They don't understand, begging and nearly pulling him away from his computer, the source of the barrier. Finally relenting, they say they trust their son. A moment that makes him cry as he understands they still love him as their son, and he still does consider them as his parents. Finally, once the fighting takes a moment's break, they are able to confess to him the truth. His parents passed away in a car crash, and as his only living relatives, and after recently losing a child of their own, they took him in. They regret not having told him sooner, realizing that he's carried this knowledge without any help or guidance. Striving to live up to expectations set up by his parents, Joe grows up with the goal of being a doctor. The only problem? He does not have the passion or fortitude for an education in medicine. Unable to confess to his parents about his true wants, he instead defines his role in the family and in the world as being someone that people can rely on, trust to carry out whatever task that they need to be done. He gives up personal satisfaction and identity, and instead chooses to fulfill the wants and needs of others, going so far as to jump into a raging river to save a drowning TK with a piece of debris to float on, nearly drowning himself in the process. After a long conversation with his brother, he comes to realize that the people around you, as much as they push you towards certain paths in life, will still be proud of you if you choose a different path, and that being reliable doesn't mean having to give up on personal satisfaction and happiness. Mimi initially comes off as a spoiled child that cries when she doesn't get her way. By giving her the crest of sincerity, it's reframed and explored throughout her personality that she tends to be impacted hard by her emotions, and at times being overwhelmed and paralyzed by them. Whether it's sadness, fear, joy, or disgust, she wears her heart on her sleeve and doesn't hide her feelings or thoughts, whether they may be hurtful or not. Her journey is to accept that while she may be deeply impacted by the good and the bad around her, and can express this openly with friends and allies, and still need time to recover afterward, she still needs to have the strength to carry these emotions with her and continue to try and be a positive impact on the world without shutting it out. Thank you all so much for watching. This is a little bit different than the normal content I make. I have had this on my mind for a couple months now, and I've wanted to express my thoughts on just how good a show Digimon actually is and how well it communicates so many different lessons to children that watch it. It is an S tier children's show, and I rewatch it often. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any disagreements or any further comments or insight you want to express in this topic, please feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share all of that. I'll be back to SCP content in a little bit. I just had to take a break away for grad school, and I've had this ready to go for, like I said, months. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good night.